the time I'm 29, my body will turn back to mine. And what damage can it do till then? If I see you in everything, if you're so scared to be alone, then just become an organ donor. You're so scared to be alone. Why won't you be my organ donor?
Very nice. Here
I'm
we are.
enjoying it.
It's so cool. This is the first time that I've ever done an interview with my guest as in candlelit. So, yay!
First time for everything. You need to, check off every box.
That's right. That's right. So welcome everyone to another episode of Bueller Podcast, Season 5. We are traveling really far around the world here today. And I didn't realize this, but we have Stella Birdie coming in from Australia, sitting on her porch with candles because her roommates are still sleeping. So we'll talk pretty quietly because we don't want to wake her roommates up, and the whole flat is against her all day saying, I'm grumpy because of you. We don't want that. We're not going to do that. So thank you. Thank you for accepting this invite. And also kudos to you for getting up so darn early. And, these time changes, they're dramatic at times.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And also, honestly, I got back from the US like a week and a half ago. So I probably needed a reason to wake up early and actually get myself back on track. I've been sleeping in quite late. So this is good.
Okay, good.
Accountability.
Right. All things work out in the end, we'll say.
Yeah.
So, Stella, tell me a little bit about where things began for you. Do you have some memories of your, as you were growing up, of where music really started to show itself to you and reveal it that this was something that was going to be a part of your life?
Absolutely, yeah. I think my sister would play me a lot of stuff. I remember really key points of I don't know, downloading a bunch of music for me and getting really into it that way, and then also just writing a lot. I think that I was writing songs before I knew what I was doing, that was what I was doing. And there are little scrapbook notebooks of me from a very young age, and some of them are clearly a copy paste of whatever song I was getting access to via the radio, but you can see it's cave drawings. You're oh, I can see what you're trying to do. You'll get to something at some point. But yeah, so I think there was just a very natural instinct towards that very early on, again, before I realized what I was doing, and then later on I started to structure it and go oh, how do I do more of this? How do I make this my life?
Right.
And now that's what I'm trying to do.
Amazing. Well, I think you're doing it. We'll say you're doing it. Because from what I can see, it's definitely happening, which is exciting. You said that you would always have these old vestiges from the past that kind of were maybe songy poetry. When did you actually start penning songs that you thought would have a life to them, and that you would want to share those with, friends, family?
Oh, I think I was probably I was 12 when I got two of my friends to sing something with me that I had written, but we were calling it kind of a band, and did it for a full school performance. And I remember that it was a very angsty, song about friendships and miscommunications, and so clearly some things haven't changed. But yeah, I remember that. And I remember that thing of, that I think everyone experiences when they're a kid, hopefully, of you just never think oh, what if someone doesn't like this? Or what if someone thinks, you're I want to do this. I want to share this. And,
Right.
I think the work of, I don't know, any artist is to try to get back to that feeling of when you were a kid and
Mm,
you shared things or did things because you were like, I think what I've made is really cool and I really want to see what people think of it.
right,
So yeah, I feel like I was at that point, my
right,
like early, very, very early teens, and then the work is just to try to get back to that point.
right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And did you find that too, like at a young age, that you felt you had that creative muscle going, like you practiced it and like pushed it further and further and further as you grew up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was doing a lot of different kinds of writing.
Mm,
I wrote a lot of different like scripts and like plays and like I don't know, was one of those kids who was always getting all the other kids in the neighborhood to like make the movie that I had in my head. I was spending a lot of time on iMovie. I do remember that.
mm,
Um
right.
uh just a
Mm.
classic vestige of the,
Right, right.
the
Amazing.
overthinking child. Um
Mm,
yeah, so I think that I was just like making things in a lot of different ways, like a lot of different mediums, but always writing a lot, and
mm,
always writing in verse,
mm.
in a
Interesting.
way that would become song structure.
Right. And were your themes that you were dabbling in at that younger age, like were those surprising themes to you, or was it kind of a therapy in a way too, of like just getting stuff out, putting it down on paper so you wouldn't just be tormenting you?
Totally, yeah. I think like I was like in many ways like a pretty melancholy kid or a very like thinking very
Mm,
heavily very early on. And so I like when I look back on like little scraps that I still have of things that I was writing, I'm like, oh, she's going through it. Um, but then there
mm,
were also things like, I don't know,
mm,
I wrote like when I was pretty like little still, I wrote like a reinterpretation of Cinderella, but that was like had a
interesting.
feminist slant and
Right.
Cinderella like does some women's lib and tries to have a career as well, which is just like pretty funny
That's great.
move for like a 7 year old to write. So I think
Yeah.
that kind of stuff was showing up there pretty early as well.
Amazing.
But yeah.
And when did you introduce yourself to guitar, songwriter, lyrics? Like, when was that first? Was that still in your teens where you started actually playing a guitar?
Yeah, my mum got me like a secondhand, relatively like, kind of beaten up but really nice acoustic. And then
Mm,
my sister got me an electric, which I still have somewhere. It's really nice. It's like this 1970s Japanese model, like
mm,
really tiny guitar that I
mm.
need to get fixed because it's like unplayable right now.
Okay.
But yeah, so those were my two, like, I think it was like my mom got me an acoustic to be
Mm,
like, like learn it, play, like write songs, blah, blah, blah. And then my sister got me an electric to be like, and remember, like you can make rock music, like you don't have to make, because, obviously there's some really brilliant acoustic guitar music. Like I love it, but sometimes you can get a bit shoehorned as
right.
like singer songwriter, one specific sound. And I think my sister was like, just remember, you can do like whatever
Right.
you want. Like you can write, you know, indie rock if you want to write indie rock. And
Mm,
and here we are.
amazing.
Mm.
And so tell me a little bit about your process. How do you go about writing songs? How do you get an idea and then either say, yeah, idea no good, let's shelve that, maybe I'll pull it out in a couple of years, to something like where a song really starts to spark inside you? Like, what's your process? Like, do you come up with your chord progressions first and then a melody comes to you, or do you have, because I did read that you're a big fan of iPhone recorder, right? For
Yeah.
tracking your, can you tell us a little bit about how you go about um beginning these songs and then to get them, bring them further along or scrap them depending?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. I start with lyrics always. Like
Okay.
I've always been a lyrics first writer.
Hmm.
And a lot of the times that's like the notes app of my phone. Like I'm not like sometimes I handwrite, but a lot of the time I'm normally coming back from like I don't know, if I've been out and I'm like I like to like do a big walk home and that's where I do a lot of writing is like
Hmm.
thinking and processing then. But like the notes app means that you can just access like a little tiny insulated corner of the world in any environment you're in. So I do that, and then normally I'll have a vocal melody in my head while I'm writing lyrics because it's giving structure to like it's creating the rules that I'm then gonna like apply to the song of literally like rhythm, assonance, all of that kind of stuff. And within the like boundaries of that structure, I can, like you kind of need sometimes to create a rule so that you can write like if you didn't have any like structure for what you were going to write against, it's harder to write because like you're like I could do anything, and then that kind of so you write nothing. So I'll have a vocal melody in my head, usually while I'm writing lyrics, and then normally once the song is written, then I will start playing it on an instrument. Like I sometimes start slightly earlier, but I normally try not to because I find that as soon as I start playing it and singing at the same time, I lock in the lyrics. And if I haven't like thought enough about them, I might get really used to singing a line that later I'm like, but that doesn't work there. So it's like trying not to get too used to your own idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love this quote that you said, and it made me think, I want to read it because it's so good. There's so many conversations we never get to have, or times when we can't make people understand us. But with songwriting, you can play those narratives out in your own terms and then hopefully put them away.
Yeah.
Can you reflect on that a little bit? I just find like I've never truly thought about it that way, but totally like, yes. How did you come to that about songwriting, that it could be this tool of healing or getting out what I can't speak to the person, whoever I'm thinking about of writing the song for.
Absolutely. I think that probably like any person doing like a craft or in a creative field, like you're trying to bridge what you see as the gap between how you need to experience the world and what the world is willing to like let you do. And I think that I very quickly in life figured out that like I want to ruminate on things much longer than you can ruminate on things. Like I want to like have a conversation over and over again for a longer time than most people like want to do that. And also things like just like I don't know, like have like not more meaning, but I don't know, I experience things like good things very intensely and bad things very intensely. And so when I was like, okay, well, I don't want to punish myself for having that sensitivity, but I also know that there are ways in which it's not compatible with like some of the more practical elements of life. If I want to ruminate on this interaction with this person, but I know that it's actually not a good thing to keep having that conversation, how can I still let myself express that? Like not muzzle yourself. And writing is like the way to do that because it's almost like, like talking to a kid and going like, okay, I can't control, what's going to happen for you out there, but right here, you can say whatever you need to me. And like, that's what the writing process I think can be if you're, as long as you're not judging yourself. Yeah. And so I think that just by nature of the fact that I would be thinking about that anyway, it's like, so you may as well try to write something and then get something out of it. And then, like at a certain point, you actually do get to put the thing down because you're like, oh, I've made this. And so maybe the end goal of that relationship wasn't, I'm going to get closure. The end goal of it was, oh, I'm going to like have this experience, write about it, feel really proud about the thing that I've written. And, I don't know, I think I've like writing has actually helped me realize that closure is like not real. Like, and writing is a really good like band-aid for like coping with the fact that closure is not real.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, the lyrics that you write about and the themes that you write about are not easy themes to put out there in the world. And I do feel that it is you working through things and having that conversation that you couldn't have, but you're having it anyway through your music and the melodies and the the words that you're putting out there. do you find that you need to like have kind of like these difficult themes, like that they inspire you more than, a narrative of some kind where it's not, maybe it's more removed from you? Like, does writing have to
Mm.
be intimate for you? Like, do you have to write songs that have tugged at your heartstrings or made you super, like, you know melancholy, as you said?
Intimate is a great word for it because it's like I think that that's actually the experience that I'm usually pursuing, and
Mm,
sometimes that means it's melancholy or that it's got some anger or
mm,
some resentment or bitterness or any host of things. Sometimes it means that it's like um a really delicate kind of like love of any kind or like so
mm,
like I'm pursuing intimacy and I'm pursuing something that like I can't say any other way. I think
mm,
that's what I'm trying to do when I'm writing. I do notice that I'm not like I don't tend to write when I'm feeling very content. Like I
mm.
don't tend to analyze it very much, which I think is
Right.
just like a human thing. So
Yeah.
I just have
Yeah.
less songs that are written in those moments where I'm like, you know, like having, there like when there are like parts of my life that I'm feeling very fulfilled about, I'm just
Mm,
like less likely to like turn the microscope on them. But I am my kind of one of my hopes like longer term is that I'll get to a point where I can write about those things in a way that I find interesting. I
mm,
just like sometimes I try to write, I don't know, like not happier songs strictly, but like songs about those more like reflective, like loving moments, and then
mhm.
I just get like bored with myself. Probably because what I have to say, I say. Like I express those feelings pretty
Right.
directly to people quite easily. So
Okay.
it's like, well, I've already said it. Why do I need to write it?
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's cool. It's a great point. Like, I think too, like, you're able to put words to things that are hard to put words to, which is a great talent. Um, Thinking about now your speaking terms EP that you put out in November 2024, what was that process like for you? How did that EP come together? And to get to the point where it's eventually released.
Yeah, so I hope you're getting these birds in the background.
It's
Australian bird sounds are
slowly
really good.
becoming
It's
lighter and
slowly,
lighter. It's
yeah,
great.
you can see more happening. Um, uh, Yeah, so I mean, so the first song for the EP that I wrote was He Didn't Mean It. Like that was written the earliest. That was written in like mid 2021.
Mm,
And I wrote it and I was working on it with one of the co-producers and then kind of sort of put it down for a bit or had a really extended process of like we would come back to it for a bit and be like, oh, this isn't quite right, or like we're
mm,
trying to get it to this point, but it was hard. And I was also like, oh God, I really said all that, didn't I? And now if we put it out, I'll have said all that forever. Like
right.
that's out there.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and then I started working with Gab Strum, who ended up producing, like being the main producer for the full EP.
mm,
And we worked on all of these other songs together, and then He Didn't Mean It was the last song that we finished together. So it's really like the top and tail of that whole process. And I think that while we were making the other songs that we were making, Organdona, Headlights, 6 Foot Drop, actually
mm,
Headlights was also with my friend and co-producer Soren.
mhm.
Um, while we were working on those songs, it was like exposure therapy to like, saying vulnerable things. And so by the time we got to He Didn't Mean It again, I was like, yes, like I have to put this out.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
yeah, so I think that I don't know, it was just kind of a natural extension of the way that I've been writing for a while, but just with people, like working with new people who um, just brought out new elements of the music and who
right.
understood it in this different way and brought their own perspective, but also I don't know, I think one of the really key things is that like I never had to justify,
Mm,
why that lyric is like that or why this structure is like that. He didn't mean it's quite like a long song.
right.
We did like edit it or cut it down like ever so slightly, but like, it's still structurally like it takes quite a while to get to that first chorus. But there was like no point at which anyone was like, oh, maybe like, you know, this isn't the first song to put out, or this isn't a single, blah, blah, blah. Like everyone was just like, no, I get it. So I think that was a really key part of the creative process, was like, you don't feel as vulnerable when you're not made to like justify these choices that you made about, heavy subject
Right.
matter, or a song that's really close to you.
Absolutely. That's a good point. And was the production something that you were involved in from start to finish? I mean, as you mentioned, you had a producer and stuff, but did you partake in the crafting of, or were you just focused on the songs and the delivery and letting others kind of craft it?
Yeah, I mean, so I was in the like room for like any time the songs were being worked on, basically. Like probably like one or two times that like some editing, or particularly like vocal editing, was happening, that someone was just doing it. But yeah, I mean, I think like I want to let a producer like produce, and it's like production is something that I would love to like develop, that like skill and that muscle like in the next few years. But that like, I like have more limited experience with, basically, like just for
Right.
my own like literal manual skills. But then also, like anyone who is like work, like you know how you want it to feel and how you want it to sound, and where to direct it, or where to be like, oh, I want that to happen there. So usually the way that it works is that I will have finished a song pretty much fully. Um, bring it to a producer, or bring a host of songs to a producer, actually, and be like, which of these calls to you? Which do you want to work on? And then we kind of like go from there. But yeah, I mean, I always want to be involved in the production process, because like, I want every production choice to feel like it has a narrative explanation. Like we're not just putting in like sounds for fun. We like
Right.
want it to feel like we're doing this for a
Everything
reason.
is meant to be there, right?
Well, yeah, like in
Yeah.
Headlights, that's such a like song that's stacked with so many sounds that come in for 2 bars and then never again in the song. And like anytime we were like introducing something, we were really trying to like build a world, really, like within that song. So every single one of those is like, a brick that you want to be placing on purpose.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And now, so I mean, this record's been out for a handful of months.
Mm.
When you look back on it, what were your greatest surprises that you encountered after the release?
I think, I mean, like generally my like surprise was just, it had been a while since I'd put anything out, and it was like the EP is quite, I would say, different to, like, not radically, but quite different to things that I've put out before. So I think I was just like really like, um I don't know, I felt really grateful how many people were listening, and like different people were reaching out, and like, just like things like the radio play that we got
Yeah.
was really cool, and I was not expecting. Again, particularly for like some of those like longer songs, or like with heavier content. I think part of me was like, I know that I want to put this out, but also like there might be a limit to how accessible it is, or how viable it is for radio, because of, I don't know, the things that I'm saying, even just how
Right.
much I'm swearing in some of these songs. I didn't think about it until we were like at the end of the EP, and then I was like, wow, I did that a lot.
I think
Like,
your fuck placements are like like so good.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Starting He Didn't Mean It with I Saw That Motherfucker is the most
Yeah.
fun thing live of all
Yeah.
time, because if someone in the crowd has been maybe like not fully engaged, you see them like be like, what?
Amazing.
Like they just locked in.
Well, it's like
Yeah.
gut level. It's a gut level like lyric, like or sentence, like
Yeah.
surely like pulls your attention because wait a minute, I felt like that before. Like,
Yeah.
I got to hear about this story.
Everyone knows. I like shitbag as well. I think that's a unique one. That's not in every song.
So as you progress here, I mean, what does 2025 look like for you, Stella? Where's the music headed in this year?
Yeah, lots going on. Uh in May, doing these Europe and UK shows, and then have a few things not yet announced towards the end of the year that are happening as well, which is really cool. And we have been working on new music, and so some of that is going to start to come out in the next few months, which is really exciting. So just hopefully like playing shows, making more music, putting it out. I'm really excited about the next, like we've been playing a lot of the unreleased songs like on that US tour and at South by, and it's such a like great thing to get to do, because you literally get to see people's like live response. Like when you're putting things out on a normal release day, you don't talk, you're not seeing any of the people who are like responding to the music. So playing live is so important for like almost mindfulness, to be like, oh, I'm doing this to like talk to people at the end of the day. So that's been really good, and just like keen to do more of that, keen to like meet more people. I met really lovely people who would come to the shows, some people who would come from like pretty far distances to come to the US shows. So I just want to do more of that.
In May too, are you heading out? You're heading out on the road again in May.
Yeah. So I've got a UK/Europe tour in May. So playing some festivals, playing the Great Escape, Focus Wales, London Calling in Amsterdam, and then a couple of headline shows in London, Manchester, Nottingham, I want to say. Yeah.
Good for you. Well, I'm super pleased with you accepting this invite. It's been really fun talking with you, and a great story so far, and many more chapters to come. Listeners, you got to go and catch a show, get the record, buy a t-shirt, support our indie artists as much as you can. So this has been fascinating. You said some things that I will reflect upon for probably a while now, as I go through. But I really want to thank you for waking up so early and sharing some of your insights and thoughts about where you've been and where you're going.
Absolutely. This is good. This is like journaling first thing. It's like morning pages. I'm like out here as the sun rises being like, oh, what do I think about?
Right. It may remind me quickly of there was a thing that you said about coming out of the darkness into, away from the heartache by putting out, writing these songs down. I feel like this podcast has been like that, where we've gone from darkness into the light, and we're starting to see things more clearly about Stella Birdie and where she's going.
Yeah, it's all linked. Yeah, I really feel that way. I think like playing the songs live and feeling like the joy, and then remembering where they came from, like remembering with Organ Donor, like the space that I like I was in what I was writing about, and now I'm like, first of all, that feels so distant, but like that's the thing that you do, right? Is like you write about the feeling, and then by the time you've written it, like the last line of that song does come true. It's like by thinking it over or playing it over, eventually like it kind of fades into less and less. So that's cool. Shout out to music for that one.
Well, shout out to that song too, so people hang on. We're going to listen to Organ Donor at the end of this. Stella, all the best. Keep rocking. I hope one day our paths cross again, and we'll be talking about a new record down the road sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
All right. See you.
I lowered myself to the floor. I raised my chin and asked for more. I begged to get to see it through, to spend my life miserable with you. But by the time I'm 29, my body will turn back to mine. And what damage can it do till then? If I see you